Thank you, Margaret. And it looks like we may have our first technological glitch. If the slides aren't working, we'll see what happens here. Well, we'll start out and see if they all hold up or not. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate being here, just in case we need to link it in. I'm delighted to be here. This is a wonderful, it's not only been a wonderful day, but an enlightening day. I think one of the things that strikes me when coming to a program is that you're anticipating learning new material, you're anticipating meeting new colleagues, but this has been truly impressive. What's been done not only by all of you in the room, but the thoughtful leadership. Again, congratulations, Margaret, for helping advance this route. The entire NIDLR program for moving this forward has been really spectacular. But I think it also shows the wonderful mechanisms that have come together, the partnerships. Hearing from the Dean this morning on how the schools jumped into this, how Lakeshore Foundation, having Jeff Underwood speak to that, it is really a model for the best of bringing together academia and many other organizations to advance the field, and it's just wonderful to see that today. So some of my comments are going to be repetitive to a modest degree. Others, per what Jim, Sanjay, and Mohan challenged me to do, is share with you a bit of our model on the West Coast that is one that not only has taken this on for the last 15 years, but is now looking at the next generation, and I think has lessons to learn from everyone here today as well. But in doing so, I run the risk now of, if we start with the analogy from the beginning of the day, I'm batting cleanup. So I'm standing between you and the reception. So we'll see what we can do about moving through this relatively quickly. What I'd like to do is give you this background on our program. I usually just don't speak about CITRIS and what we put together in that way, but per the challenge, share with you some of the comparable dimensions of what's been put together on this multi-campus interdisciplinary program that was created 15 years ago to really push research out into practice, into commercialization. As just an example of what has been accomplished, where we have some similarities, but also a fair amount of differences in terms of the ability to work with the private sector, work with venture funding, take advantage of the incubation environment in the Silicon Valley area. I'd also like to talk just about a few points in terms of translating some of the projects and issues you've talked about, some of the things I heard today, as Margaret so beautifully did, identify a few of the key. I have a colleague who has come up with a new concept on diagnosing Parkinson's, who is the international developer for water tracking in the Sierra. So it's quite a wonderful space. What's intriguing also is that just as you have a fabulous framework here, I can't say enough about the RAMP conceptual model, we too have built these programs over, first, looking at the biggest problem sets. It's all problem-based learning, problem-based research. Some of the biggest challenges to society, and by the way, these slides I'll be happy to share with anybody if you'd like. But we look at those big problem areas as the drivers, and then we're fortunate because we're working across an array of different technology solutions. Not only the Internet of Things and mobile solutions, but we move quickly into robotics and different types of data solutions. CITRIS itself is unique because it pushes hardware and software together in new ways. But it's also to create those global solutions. So we're looking for platforms to connect all the devices we're talking about today. We're looking at new persuasion and behavioral change models. We're looking at how we can enhance new telehealth solutions to address and bring these programs remotely, on and on. Key thing on the very bottom there that I want to point out is that we're looking for scalable solutions, but that are also customizable to individuals, and that they give, whether it's a person with disabilities or a professional or a family caregiver, actionable information and to move that forward. So as we do that, we've created within the Health Group, a program that originally 15 years ago was let 1,000 flowers bloom, everybody can do their own thing. But we've really honed that down and first drive around the ACA, given that we're looking at ways that we can move the needle, not only in health, population health, and in personalized health, but ways that we can improve systems in society. The key issues that we're doing and working on in terms of the Affordable Care Act are looking at, first, a hospital-to-home concept. How do we reframe and bring not only technologies, bring healthcare, bring health and health improvement to where people are, and secondly, looking at what we're calling precision health. Not the genomics issue, even though that's critical, and we have the International Genomics team that works with us on looking at phenotypic data and how we can link this, but how we take these data and put them together into giving people very actionable items, giving individuals very specific next steps in terms of how they can use this amazing amount of data that are now being pushed out. So, the technology areas that we're fortunate to work with, we have the second largest telehealth system, the California Telehealth Network, that we use as a baseline, as a program area to do a lot with remote patient monitoring. We're doing a great deal in terms of sensors and robotics, and of course now mobile and app solution. But what's really putting it all together are data, and that's become the new framework for how we're looking at this for new solution sets. We have a fantastic infrastructure that goes behind it. You have one, I've loved hearing what's going on at UAB. This is just perfect, and also colleagues from Penn and Chicago, et cetera, what's going on in Ohio. You have some wonderful programs. We've been fortunate to build on items. The Marvell Nano Lab is one of the largest in academia. It's a private-public partnership that's run by researchers who bring in information, but also 90 different companies support this and bring their technologies right into this lab to build out new sensors, etc. We have the telehealth platform, we have virtual labs, different types of simulation programs, but I'll speak to a few. Our invention lab, which is an amazing makerspace, which is just now, we built an entire building out this year. The Jacobs family, who Paul Jacobs started Qualcomm, made a donation to build out an entire 4-story building, all to do maker space and new development. It's our invention lab. And our foundry, which is our incubator, which I'll speak to. But we have the Center for Health and Technology at the Davis campus, which was also funded under Governor Schwarzenegger to build out an entire space for all different types of new innovation. The working space that you're building, very similar, where you can test out new technologies in many different areas. Similarly, we put together an entire test bed, which is collaborating with not only major health systems like Kaiser, Sutter, Dignity, and our California area, but looking at everything from senior living communities to issues with AARP and age-friendly communities and cities to home and community-based programs where we can work to test out new programs and new technology solutions with the end user. But it's more than spaces, it's more than buildings, it's the people, but it's also the processes. So we've created a number of mechanisms to bring all this together that really force people to work together and also help them expedite getting their material and their successful research projects out into practical application. So I'm going to speak a little bit more detail on our incubator, but we do different challenges. We had the U.S.'s largest hackathon 4 months ago. We had 1,000 students from around the U.S. come to the football stadium. Not as big as Ohio State, sorry, but it's, we still brought 1,000 students who worked all weekend long. I was thrilled because the winning solution was one, Margaret, you're going to Seattle. It was a team from Seattle that put together the idea of an Uber concept with ambulances and how we can place ambulances closer to where they're needed and thus cut down the amount of time and improve the healthcare access and definitely improve outcomes, reducing morbidity and mortality. Wonderful program put together in a weekend. The team was already picked up by several companies to advance that concept. I mentioned our innovation, Jacobs Innovation Center. I'm thrilled about that. The very first class that came out of that, this just opened, we had a group that came together to put together a class around developing and designing technology with aging. It's a combination of undergrads and older adults. In fact, many of the folks came from our Osher Lifelong Learning Program, where the fourth age salon team, where the only criteria is you have to be over the age of 85. Bringing them together to design what the technology solution should be that they wanted. I loved hearing that here today, but this is the type of thing we're seeing. We're fortunate that we use funds to jumpstart new programs, seed grants, which in turn can come back to ACL or NIDLR, but NIH, NSF, to move those programs ahead. And we get a fair number now of corporate sponsorships and partnerships who come in with ideas or also just want to sponsor the best and the brightest to try new programs. And this year we're going to be launching a university-based venture fund. We're actually going to be putting $100 million that'll be raised by private sector, but it'll be coordinated to support the programs that come out of this. So an end-to-end solution, if you will, taking research, very quickly evaluating it, looking at how to scale it, putting it out there, and getting the right funding to move it forward. A couple of quick examples, and I'll move on to just a few things for the future. The incubator, we're starting that program. It has just been over the last 3 years. For those of you who are thinking about or know a great deal about startup companies, you realize it's not for the faint of heart. It's a challenging space. I'm thrilled because we get undergraduates, not just grad students, postdocs, or faculty who are doing this, but undergrads who are coming in with the concepts and ideas to move forward. But you'll also know that it's usually only 1 out of 10 are successful. So the first 18 companies, we have 15 of them that have funding with multiple SBIRs, multiple angel investment, a round of funding from the different venture firms in that area. And it's quite exciting to see these folks who've been with proper mentoring and leadership from folks who've been there before, how they can quickly take these ideas and make them successful. But it's part of a bigger ecosystem. We're not just within these organizations. What I think has been really profoundly wonderful is that it's multi-sectorial. We're working with universities across the U.S. We're, for Jim's leadership, excited to look at ideas about working with UAB. We work across the globe on these. Also, how we collaborate within different government agencies. The WHO has now just announced its Kobe Center in Japan is going to focus on aging and technology for the next 10 years. We find collaborating research centers like Partners Healthcare up at Harvard, the Center for Connected Health, that does collaboration. And we find companies that are now aligning their interests in this space. And I think this is the most exciting thing for those of us coming from academia or research. Industry is now understanding the market and what the demand is and what the potential is from the work that's being done by all of us. And of course, we work with many different groups, which has been both a challenge but a wonderful opportunity because these are global challenges, and we're finding new partners and folks who, rather than reinvent the wheel, we're finding people who've been doing similar work and then trying to partner together to take it to the next level. Corporate partnerships have been central in this. We've had a significant number of companies involved, and they do it in many different ways, from sponsoring different projects or specific seed grants to actually, once they understand the intellectual property, getting access to the patents for those and moving them forward on their own. And it's become an entire process of working on multiple levels to see this move forward. What I came away from today was seeing a fantastic set of opportunities that very quickly should be able to, in the next few years, move forward and with the proper collaboration with industry have tremendous opportunity for much broader application. So a few key things just to add to Margaret's point, and then finally I'll wrap up with a few overview statements about where I see some of the next areas of technology moving that we can all be working on. What I heard today, a number of things. Margaret did a beautiful summary of those key takeaways. I saw wonderful projects and ideas about how do we look at universal solutions but making sure that they're personalized at the same time. I'm really totally impressed at how everybody, different projects that were mentioned today, looked at design concepts. We're always looking at it from the idea, first and foremost, of usability and accessibility. You folks embody this area, and this needs to be carried out, and I think being put in front of companies, it'll get tremendous uptake. There's a great deal of excitement in this area of how we deal with behavioral health and move along areas. We have several projects, particularly adherence, which runs from medication adherence to physical activity. There are some underlying principles that I think you folks should be champions of. One of the key things that I didn't hear as much about, and I think we see as a biggest challenge, is I'm speaking to folks who know this, the entire interoperability challenge. We have so many different types of technology, particularly when we're trying to use off-the-shelf technologies, that still don't speak to each other. And one of the biggest things we get from our feedback, whether it's older adults or persons with disabilities or hospital professionals, it's that they do not want multiple devices. They do want seamless integration, and that still is going to be one of our major challenges as we look at all these programs. We all heard from several comments today around privacy and security will be central. I love the point about all the training you folks are doing, just through not only engineering, but the way that is happening with researchers. But we also have to remember how this then translates into building out new protocols and using adult learning principles and training concepts for end users. And finally, it's important not to forget about equity issues. One of the things we're struggling with as we're doing many of our global programs is turning a lot of very successful high-tech solutions into what we call frugal technology solutions. We talked with Jerry about a program, and we both have projects in the Philippines. Well, one has to adjust to a different technology base and platform and reduce the cost because some of the technologies we would use in the U.S. are not only not compatible, but they aren't affordable in that setting. So, key issues going forward. I do think that there's a major opportunity here. In aging, we call it now the longevity market, that there is a clear understanding that we have so many individuals that will benefit and are being ready to pay, and whether it's private pay or government sector to move this forward. I think that one of the key things we have to do is how do we, as Margaret said so nicely, how do we communicate that? Similarly, how do we show very specific evidence? How do we show the return on investment? And what I don't have on here is how do we show the implications of what we need to do through public policy. One of the things that I'm going to move ahead quickly through this because I think that, I'll hold off on that. One of the things I want to say, though, I think that so much of what we're doing in the research that we see here and the projects that you do, for it to be fully implemented, it's still going to take a great deal of interaction with government and with how standards are set and regulations. So, real quickly, a quick thumbnail sketch. What I'm excited about is we're still at the cutting edge here. Several of our groups are working now on how do we move mobility, as we heard from several folks. Mobile solutions are clearly a game changer in this area. But now with wearables, we just look at the issue of where we've been with mobile solutions, and now we look at where we're going with watches and other wearables. We're just at the beginning. The way sensors, we have now nanosensors can be embedded in so many different environments the way we're going to be able to collect so much information and move it forward is huge. We do a scan, a review of what we think will be the key issues, not 10 years out or even 5 years out, but over the next 3 years, some of the key pain points and problem sets that we can bring to our researchers. Many of them have been addressed today through a lot of the assistive technologies, etc. Others move into other areas such as remote labs and different types of, as I said, medication or social commerce networks. But one of the things that I think comes back to through all of it is that we have now new solutions that need to be thought of in very creative ways. One of the things we're working on, which is not a direct focus of the group today, is looking at med adherence, $290 billion problem. It started with Philips mechanisms for pill dispensers. It's moved ahead with apps. Now we have ingestibles. Proteus is a company that has embedded a chip in a pill so you can actually tell the medication, the lot number, and when it was actually taken, because it sends a sensor when it's been ingested to another device on your arm, which in turn goes to your cell phone, and a provider knows that you've taken your medication. We're moving ahead with, as we heard again beautifully today, AI and machine learning now coming to bear on bringing information and taking the data forward. We're seeing new mechanisms to tie robotics into this space. The autonomous vehicles, which you addressed in a number of ways, are clearly not only here, but are changing the way we're going to be looking at independence and autonomy in so many different ways. And now new ways of capturing information. We're getting tremendous pressure. It's not only because there's companies interested in this, but actually new ways of thinking how we can use information. And it was wonderful to see how you folks are using that. So again, linking these different technologies is now the next step. It's not just one or another. And the biggest issue still will be data. We have a wonderful set of NIH big data hubs that we're working with. We have folks who put together federated electronic health record systems of 15 million de-identified patients. But we're still just at the cutting edge. The challenges of pulling these data and making them and using them collectively are huge. So one of the things I just wanted to close with is that, as I mentioned before, it's still going to be how we take the wonderful work that you're doing, wonderful work that we're seeing not only across the U.S. in academic centers and private industry, but globally, and make sure that policies can help advance them. So it's not just commercialization, but it's how do we work in that regard. I was very pleased to be part of the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. The report just came out, and have the link to it and can send that around. Just came out 3 weeks ago, which really identifies several key areas that we think the Obama administration in its remaining 9 months can actually act upon. Probably we're down to 8 months now. And several of the key solutions were exactly the projects under physical ability in particular that were mentioned here today and that you champion are items that the administration can make policy decisions and research decisions on right at this point. So I commend to you that report to look at it. It's not exhaustive. It picked several key areas that people thought would be actionable, but it really shows the way we have to be looking at this in multiple levels at once. It's not just our own research. It's not just thinking of what companies will take and run with or how government agencies can use it. I love Margaret's point that we have many agencies that would love to have the tools that were being developed here today. But it's how do we look at it as a society, and what are some of the new policies and mechanisms we need to be able to move these forward. So with that, I'd like to say that I think that we're at a wonderful point where we're going to be able to see the translation of the great work that's being done here by your program and by all the researchers here We're going to be seeing new ways to link these different technologies together. And I just hope that we push ourselves so that we're looking for transformative solutions, those that really make sure that we do things in an innovative way that push the envelope. And what I saw today is you're doing it. So thank you very much.